What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Draft Hub. And today it is bittersweet. It is my final record prediction video of the 2025-26 college football season, the Big Ten Conference. In my personal opinion, have saved the best conference for this season for last. This series has been awesome. This has truly transformed the way that this new channel has gotten off the ground. I really appreciate everything that you guys have done for me, all the support, all the comments, all the views, the likes, everything. It's been fantastic so far, and I can't thank you guys enough for your continued support. At the time of recording, we're at 313 subscribers. Considering that it is technically the off season of football, it technically hasn't started yet. That will be on Saturday. If you're listening to this, I'm recording this on Wednesday, August 27th. So technically the college football season has started, but we've gotten through all those teams already for the most part. But yeah, I can't thank you guys enough for the continued support and the growth of this channel straightforward before the football season hasn't even started. I got a lot of exciting things coming up in my life, and this is high up on the list of things that I'm really, really excited about is the growth of this channel and to produce more quality content for you guys who are already subscribed and hopefully new listeners that will potentially subscribe. So thank you for that. But yeah, so getting into the final record prediction video of this series for the 2025-26 season. The Big Ten is amazing. From top to bottom, well, maybe not the bottom, but basically for 15 out of the 18 teams, you have some truly competitive teams. So this is going to be tough to navigate through. I think I've done as best as I can. The top is really, really tough to sift through and decipher. So, I've seen some people say Oregon. I've seen some people say, not Michigan State. Whoa, definitely not Michigan State. Say Penn State and Ohio State. So obviously wait until the end to see what I pick at the top. But without further delay, let's get into this final record prediction video of the season. And in dead last of the Big Ten to kick off this video, I have the Purdue Boilermakers. Really not a surprise here at all. Head coach Barry Odom takes over a monumental task here for Purdue. Barry Odom was a highly sought-after head coach leaving UNLV, so this is a really good get for Purdue, and hopefully they hand him the keys for quite a long time to try and rebuild this once promising program. And they've been dead for quite some time now, but Barry Odom is a good guy to lead the charge. Devin Maccabee is a really exciting player. So is Nitro Tuggle, who has one of the best names in college football. Tony Grimes, who has seemingly played on like every single collegiate team in college football, is a nice transfer for Purdue. Yeah, let me see if I could think about all the teams that I've seen Tony Grimes on, at least in the last few years. So he's on Purdue. I think last year he was on UNLV. The year before that, he was on North Carolina. I'm pretty sure he's been on like UTSA or some. I know he started out at a very, I don't remember where he exactly started out, but I believe that this is like his fourth or fifth team. So all power to him. But Purdue has quite a bit of, rebuilding to do. I mean, that's obvious. 2-10, I have them at here. Odom is going to have to do a complete rebuild on the defensive side. They allowed 39.9 points per game last year after a 1-11 season. They're returning 0 starters, which honestly, after giving up 40 points per game, is probably for the best. So there's going to be a massive rebuild from top to bottom on the defensive side. Really, this Purdue team could start out 2-0 and then just lose the rest of the 10 games. Ball State and Southern Illinois are the first 2 games. And honestly, Ball State is no guaranteed win. So really the only guaranteed win I see here for this Barry Odom-led squad is Southern Illinois. But that's really all I want to talk about for the Purdue Boilermakers. I mean, I think they have a great head coach at the helm. I think it's going to take a lot of time. You're playing in one of the most prestigious conferences in college football. It's going to be really tough to recruit, even through the transfer portal. Purdue's going to have a tough time, but the rest of their schedule, the final 10 games, USC, Notre Dame, Illinois, Minnesota, Northwestern, Rutgers, Michigan, Ohio State, Washington, and Indiana. So just an absolute gauntlet this is basically every team in the Big Ten has a gauntlet. This is a phenomenal conference this year. And just I mean, how much did Notre Dame pay Purdue to beat up on them? I mean, that is a really tough non-conference opponent there, but I think we're not going to be talking about Purdue in a good way, I feel like, for at least the next couple of years. At 17, I have Maryland with a record prediction of 3-9. Mike Loxley's team here last year went 4-8, which ended a consecutive bowl streak of 3 straight seasons. I feel like Maryland is always one of those teams that will have like 1 or 2 bad years and then come back up to being like a fringe top 25 team. So I'm not really worried about them. They always recruit pretty well. They always bring in a decent amount of talent. They know how to produce talent and develop it. So I'm not really concerned. I think these 2 years are more of a transitional year for them. But last year was really telling. Last year they lost 7 of their 8 Big Ten games last year, and all 7 losses were by 14 or more points. So the defense has quite a bit of work to do. 36.6 points per game given up last year. On the offensive side, it was a quarterback competition between Malik Washington and Justin Martin. So 2 younger, exciting players there. I believe Malik Washington is either a true freshman or a redshirt freshman, so that's exciting. Jalen Husky is a hell of a player in the secondary. Dante Joyner is also a player that I think is going to break out in a big way. It's tough for Maryland. They also lost Roman Hemby, so we'll get to him a little bit later on. Hemby was a big loss for them. They also lost their top three statistical wide receivers last year. So just a huge turnover for the Terrapins, and it's not going to get better on the schedule side. You have FAU, Northern Illinois, and Townsend. Those are probably going to be where your 3 wins come from, or at least 2 of those 3 wins. Then you have Wisconsin, Washington, Nebraska, UCLA, Indiana, Rutgers, Illinois, Michigan, and Michigan State. And honestly, as a Big Ten team, I feel like Maryland actually got the better end of the deal. That's a relatively easy schedule for the gauntlet that the Big Ten Conference is. So maybe they will win more. Maybe we're looking at 5-7, maybe even sneaking into a bowl game at 6-6 potentially, because there are some other teams that are just not really that strong. Michigan State, UCLA, the teams like that. Wisconsin's not very strong either, but the Terrapins are a little bit of a transitional period, and like I said, I think they go through this every once in a while where they have a couple years where they're not so great, and then they come back to prominence. And they always have players to work with. Pep Hamilton, the new offensive coordinator, is going to come in. He's got plenty of talent to work with, and he's proven on so many different levels of football. So I'm sure that he will make chicken salad out of chicken shit. What would Maryland have on their roster? But I think it is going to be a transitional year for them. At number 16, I have Northwestern as well with a record prediction of 3-9. Now, this might be a little harsh considering that they went 4-8 last year and they arguably got way better at the quarterback position, bringing in SMU transfer Preston Stone. I don't really think Northwestern's offense kind of fits Preston Stone's strengths, but be that as I was quite enamored with him in the 2025 quarterback class for the draft. And then obviously he got hurt for most of the season. Kevin Jennings took over. And, the rest is history. But David Braun was not able to recreate the magic of his interim stint in 2023, where they went 8-5, 4-8 last year. It was promising in 2023. They left the defense held teams to 5.1 yards per play. Last year it was 5.9 yards per snap. So a little bit of a decline there. You have some exciting players to get excited about really on this team. So you have, I mentioned Preston Stone, Anto Saka, Caleb Tiernan is a player that I think is going to potentially be, a first round pick. Aiden Hubbard, Carmine Bastoni, which honestly is one of my favorite names in all of football. Najee Story. They got a lot of players that you could really get excited about, but the schedule, again, it's just there's just so many better teams ahead of them. So they start off rough against Tulane. Then you have Western Illinois, which is probably going to be a win. Oregon, UCLA, Louisiana Monroe, which nowadays is not as easy of a win as you would think. Penn State, Purdue, Nebraska, USC, Michigan, Minnesota, and Illinois. It is a very, very rough schedule for David Braun's team. And yeah, I mean, that's really all I have to say. Hopefully, Preston Stone can get back to his 2023 self, and maybe they will sneak in a couple very surprising victories there. Maybe a 4-8, maybe a 5-7. But really, coupled with the fact that this team has kind of sprinkled them with talent, it's not really consistent all throughout the roster, and the schedule is just really hard. That's all I could really do for Northwestern for this prediction. At 15, I have Michigan State at 4-8. Head coach Jonathan Smith has one of the more exciting younger quarterbacks in the conference in Aiden Chili's to work with here. But I mean, he had him last year as well. This offense was the problem for this Michigan State team, only able to average 19.3 points per game last year. Chili's did have 2,415 yards, 13 touchdowns. Nick Marsh is back, who is a rising star at the wide receiver position. Jack Velling is a really, really exciting prospect in the 2026 draft cycle as well. So the offense does have stuff to work with. They brought in Kent State, I want to say. Yes, Kent State, Krishan McCray, who is kind of like a lightning in the bottle gadget type of wide receiver. So that's exciting as well. On the defensive side, they didn't lose a whole lot. The defense does have room for improvement. They gave up 5.8 yards per play last year, but they brought in a couple of exciting transfers. I just think, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but there's just teams that are more talented than Michigan State. I think Aiden Chili's, like I said, is one of the more exciting younger quarterbacks in the Big Ten. But I mean, just yikes! I look at this. This is a tough schedule yet again. I mean, Western Michigan, which honestly, again, is not an easy task. So same thing with Boston College. Then they have Youngstown State, which you're going to get a win there. USC, Nebraska, UCLA, Indiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Penn State, Iowa, and Maryland. That is a really, really tough schedule to navigate. The games that I could see them winning, obviously Youngstown State. What else did I say here? UCLA is a winnable game. Maryland is a winnable game. And even Iowa is a winnable game. And that's really it. This is a very, very tough schedule. And I don't know if the addition of Krishan McCray is going to make that much of a difference for this offense to jump. I mean, anything is going to be better than 15.9 points per game, but yeah, I don't know if it's going to be able to keep up with the other offenses in the Big Ten. So unfortunately, I think Michigan State's roster is better than what my record prediction is, but just with the schedule, there are just so many more teams that are unfortunately more talented than them. And I didn't mention Malik Spencer, but I think he's a hell of a player, and that's why I have him as my defensive player of the year for Michigan State. At 14, I have Wisconsin at 4-8. Head coach Luke Fickell has a little bit of a difficult task this year because they're combining a lot of talent on both sides of the ball with a lot of inexperience and a lot of holes. So, on the offensive side, the offensive line is one of the best in the Big Ten, in my opinion. All along the offensive line, you have NFL-ready caliber players. On the defensive side, Jeremy Latimer is one of my favorite transfer cornerbacks in the entire FBS. I think he's going to be unbelievable from Jacksonville State. Pairing him with Ricardo Hallman, again, you're just asking for one of the better cornerback duos in the entire Big Ten. Like I said, the offensive line is going to be huge for them. They averaged 22.6 points per game on offense, which isn't bad, but it's still a little bit less than 23.1 points per game that they gave up. And that's not bad. 23.1 points per game that they gave up on the defensive side isn't bad. But when you look into the numbers and see that they were 17th against the run last year, that's bad. And they did have a couple players leave for the NFL draft as well. So it's going to be tough for them to patch up those holes there. I'm not necessarily worried about the defensive side. The offensive side, I'm going to worry about. Billy Edwards Jr. steps into the starting quarterback role. I'm not the biggest Billy Edwards fan, so I'm not too high on that. Promising at receiver, they have Darian Dupree and Dylan Jones battling for the top spot in the backfield. So there's a lot to like on the offensive side, just a lot of question marks as well. And, you're not really looking at a real true number one wide receiving threat as well. So there's a lot of question marks on this Wisconsin Badgers team on the offensive side. Miami of Ohio, Middle Tennessee State, Those are their first 2 games, and they go to Alabama, Maryland, Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, Oregon, Washington, Illinois, Indiana, and Minnesota. That is a brutal second half of the schedule. I could see them winning 3 of those first 4 games, then maybe winning against Iowa, and that's really it. Again, just a brutal schedule for a team that doesn't have necessarily elite talent on it. You're playing with the big boys here. You're playing with Oregon. You're playing with Penn State. You're playing with Ohio State. You're playing with second top tier teams like Illinois. Nebraska could be up there this year. Michigan is always a tough team. You know what I mean? It's tough, and Wisconsin, unfortunately. I do love their logo, by the way. I love the two-tone with the bright red and then the popping out of the back. I love that. I used to rate logos in this series, and then I would just forget about it like halfway through the video, so I don't do it anymore. But this would be one of my tops in the conference. I do love this logo quite a bit. At 13, I have UCLA, and UCLA was with a record prediction of 4-8, by the way. Deshaun Foster's group was in the headlines early in the offseason with quarterback Nico Lamalieva transferring to them after leaving Tennessee in unceremonious fashion. It was really one of the first. That was the first instance that I thought, wow, the transfer portal and NIL money is insane at this point. That a player could just basically be like, yeah, I don't want to play here anymore. You're not offering me enough money. I know it's not that black and white. That's not really how it went down. But yeah, I mean, it was probably one of the biggest gets through the transfer portal for any team. I just think this team is missing a lot. They lost 4 of their 5 top receivers from last year. The offensive line is completely revamped from last year, and that doesn't mean it's for the better. They did get Javion Thomas from Cal. He's got Jalen Berger in the backfield as well, so that's a nice little tandem in the backfield for Nico Lamalieva to work with here. But just combined with the offensive side of the ball, and Carson Schlesinger was such an unbelievable quarterback for the defense of UCLA last year. UCLA actually held 4 of their last 5 opponents to under 20 points, so that is promising. They did lose a lot, like I said. Carson Schlesinger was unbelievable. He was the first pick of the second round in the 2025 NFL Draft. A lot to lose there, for sure, but they have a lot of returning veterans on the defensive side that are going to be anchoring positions of need, so that's exciting on the defensive side. I just think that there's a lot of question marks on the offensive side. Can Nico realize the talent or unlock the talent that we know he truly possesses? We saw glimpses of it last year, but it was far too inconsistent for my liking. The schedule also isn't easy. Utah, UNLV, New Mexico, Northwestern, Penn State, Michigan State, Maryland, Indiana, Nebraska, Ohio State, Washington, and USC. Those 2 first non-conference games are absolutely brutal. Utah is going to be one of the best teams in the nation, in my opinion, this year. And UNLV is a sleeper group of 5 team to make the college football playoff. So very, very difficult 2 teams there. New Mexico, of course, isn't as frightening as the other 2, but this is going to be tough. I think they get most of their wins just based off of the pure talent of Nico Lamalieva. But yeah, I think UCLA is in for a rough go of it this year. Deshaun Foster kind of takes a little bit of a step back, and I don't think Lamalieva is going to be the problem. I just think it's going to be the lack of talent around him and the schedule. This is where we get a little tricky here. At number 12, I have the Iowa Hawkeyes with a record of 5-7, and that's tough because Kirk Ferentz has been the model of consistency, really, in a very, very difficult conference. He has led this team to, 8+ wins basically every single year. They got Mark Gronowski through the transfer portal. That's a huge get for them. He's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten. I understand that. I just think they lost so much on the offensive side. Right away, you lose Caleb Johnson. That was the driving force behind your offense last year. On the defensive side is really where it hurts. Jay Higgins, Nick Jackson, Sebastian Castro, Jeremy Harris, Quinn Schultz, Yaya Black, Deontay Craig, all lost. All lost. That's a huge loss for that. And to his credit, I feel like Phil Parker, the defensive coordinator, has, dealt with turnover like that before and has done a fantastic job. I just think on the offensive side, there's really not too much to get excited about, especially at the receiver position for this team. And again, the schedule is not easy. They aren't the greatest offense on earth. Albany, Iowa State, UMass. So you get 2 wins out of the first 3 games there. Rutgers, Indiana, Wisconsin, Penn State, Minnesota, Oregon, USC, Michigan State, and Nebraska. That's a super tough back end of the schedule here. And I don't think they have the offensive firepower to keep up with it. I think it pains me that I have them at 5-7, which means that they'll be missing out on a bowl game. But, you know, on the offensive side, like I said, the offensive line is great. Gronowski is an awesome get for them. The defensive side, Xavier Wankpa is one of my favorite safeties in the entire draft class as well. So they're not short on talent. They just don't have as much talent on the defensive side. But I think this is going to be a rough go of it for Iowa. I think they're going to get checked a little bit this year. But I'm sure that I'll be wrong, and they'll be like 8-4 at the end of the year while holding opponents to like 9.6 points per game like they usually do. But yeah, for right now, and I think Logan Jones is a stud, by the way. I think he's a top 10 center in the 2026 draft class. I have the Rutgers Scarlet Knights making it their 3rd consecutive bowl appearance at 6-6. They are coming off of their first 2 back-to-back winning seasons since 2011-2012. So Greg Schiano, in his return, has just done an unbelievable job with this Rutgers team. I mean, it's double-fold. It's on-field production and it's NFL readiness, too. They have produced so much talent to the NFL over the last few years, I feel like. You know, you right away, Holland Pierce was a player last year that got drafted. Max Melton a couple of years ago. You know, there's a lot of players that have come through. Kyle Monangai as well, who is a huge loss for them, by the way. Going to be really tough to replicate the 1,279 yards that he ran for last year. But Ethan Kaliakmanis is probably one of the best quarterbacks Rutgers has had in quite some time. I'm expecting huge things for him. Last year, he was pretty awesome for them when he did play. So he had 2,696 yards, 18 touchdowns last season. The wide receiving core is going to be a little bit questionable, so they're going to need guys to step up in a big way. Antoine Raymond and Florida Atlantic transfer CJ Campbell are going to lead the way in the backfield, so it's not going to be Kyle Monangai, but it's still going to be pretty good. On the defensive side, injuries hit Rutgers pretty damn hard last year, and they are a healthy group this year. They're only bringing back 2 starters, but they only gave up a respectable 26.6 points per game in Big Ten play last year. This year is going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them to improve on that 6-6 because they have conference games against Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon this year. So the schedule goes Ohio, Miami of Ohio, Norfolk State, Iowa, Minnesota, Washington, Oregon, Purdue, Illinois, Maryland, Ohio State, and Penn State. It's going to be extremely difficult for this Scarlet Knights team and Greg Schiano to steer this ship to the direction of 6 wins, but I think they have a solid base. They have a solid quarterback. Transfer Eric O'Neal is one of my favorite. I think I had him at 15 of my top 15 edge rushers for the 2026 draft class. I think he's going to be awesome. Cam Miller is a really exciting prospect in a pipeline of cornerbacks to the NFL from Rutgers in recent years. I think Rutgers has a lot to be excited about, but that roster, that schedule is definitely going to keep them in check. At number 10, I have the Washington Huskies with a record of 8-4, so quite the record jump. I mean, unbelievable. Yeah, this is also going to start quite a string of 8-4 teams that I have. But the rebuild was on for Washington last year, and it's a little bit ahead of schedule, but it's because of the talent that they have on this team still. Jonah Coleman is an unbelievable running back talent. I believe he's the 2nd best running back in the 2026 draft class. Sicario Davis is a hell of a transfer to come in from Arizona. Denzel Boston is one of my top 3 favorite wide receivers in the draft class. Damon Williams is a sleeper Heisman candidate, in my opinion. And the record kind of plays, to be honest with you. Colorado State, UC Davis, Washington State, Ohio State, Maryland, Rutgers, Michigan, Illinois, Wisconsin, Purdue, UCLA, and Oregon. So the schedule gets a little bit easier on the back end. You got a lot of sprinkles of tough games. They should start out 3-0. Really, they should start out closer to 5-1 or 4-2. So I think this Washington Huskies team has a ton of talent. They have a ton of potential. They're just just a never-ending cycle, in my opinion, of just NFL-ready talent. And they have so much of it on this team this year. I do think it's unfortunate that they run into, Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan. It's going to be tough for them to win games like that. But I think 8-4 is a perfectly fine base for this Washington Huskies team. I'm super excited for what they could bring to the table this year. Like I said, I think Damon Williams and Jonah Coleman in his own right are probably low-key Heisman candidates. There's a lot to like about this Minnesota Golden Gophers team here at number 9. I have them at 8-4. PJ Fleck has very quietly guided this team to 8 wins in 3 of their last 4 seasons. And there's a lot to like about on the offensive side. Right away, you get the backfield tandem of Drake Lindsey and Darius Taylor. Again, Darius Taylor is a top 10 running back in the 2026 NFL draft class. Drake Lindsey, when he did play last year, showed quite a bit of promise. I expect him to take that experience and apply it to the starting role this year. On the defensive side, I'm expecting a big breakout year from Jackson Howard off the edge. Coy Parrish is just an unbelievable player. What a freshman season. 5 interceptions for him. There's a lot to like on both sides of the ball here. And there's a lot to like in the schedule, too. So this team, I think 8-4 for PJ Fleck's group is a little bit of a base. I could easily see this team reaching double-digit wins. It's going to be tough. You got Ohio State and you got Oregon on that schedule. So there's no room for error if you want to win 10 games after that, because I doubt that they're going to beat Ohio State or Oregon. Buffalo, Northwestern State, Cal, Rutgers, Ohio State, Purdue, Nebraska, Iowa, Michigan State, Oregon, Northwestern, and Wisconsin. Right off the bat, you're looking at 5 games at home that you should be 5-0 in. Buffalo, Northwestern State, Purdue, Wisconsin, Michigan State. You should be 5-0 there. It's Cal, you're at Cal. That's 6 wins right off the bat right there. It's going to be a good year for the Golden Gophers. I think 8-3 is a floor. I'm thinking more realistically, probably 9-3. And you're looking at a team that, if they would go 10-2, could be on the chopping block of the new format of the college football playoffs. So it's super exciting time for the Golden Gophers and PJ Fleck, and he's done a phenomenal job up there in Minnesota. I have the USC Trojans at 8-4. Lincoln Riley's team handed the keys over to Jaden Mayava, but his transition isn't going to be as hard because he has one of the best wide receiver duos in the FBS in Mekhi Lemon, who is my number 2 overall wide receiver, and Jacoby Lane. Just unbelievable receiving duo there. Mekhi Lemon is so unbelievable. I think he's going to be. I think he's a first round talent for sure. On the defensive side for the USC Trojans, they gave up 34.4 points per game last year, but man, did they dip into the transfer portal. DJ Harvey is an unbelievable player that they brought in from San Jose State that I think was one of the more low-key gets through the transfer portal. Unbelievable job there. They also brought in Eric Gentry, Keyshawn Silver, Anthony Lucas. They have a highly touted freshman in Jakeem Stewart. They also brought in Kamari Ramsey. This is going to be a really, really talented team on both sides of the ball. The schedule is not favorable for the most part. First 4 games really should be wins. Missouri State, Georgia Southern, Purdue, Michigan State, Illinois, Michigan, Notre Dame, Nebraska, Northwestern, Iowa, Oregon, and UCLA. Really tough, but if Lincoln Riley's squad want to get back to prominence, they have to win those tough games. So 8-4, realistically 9-3 is in the grasp 100% for this USC team. They are loaded up on talent on both sides of the ball, and I think Mayava is going to be a fantastic quarterback for them. You know, I know it's only been 1 year, but last year they didn't get what they were expecting at the quarterback position. I think that he's going to break out in a big way here. The defense is going to be much better than that 34.4 points per game, and the offense is going to be carried by these 2 stud wide receivers. Here's the thing with me with Michigan. I have them at 8-4, and it's a reluctant 8-4. This is like a base. Teron Moore has a fantastic, despite losing all of the talent that they lost last year. Justice Haynes, is going to lead the way. Extremely highly touted quarterback Bryce Underwood is going to be under center. And really, that's where the most of my uncertainty lies, because we've never seen him take a collegiate snap. So how do we know how good he's really going to be? That's why I'm a little bit cautious with a lot of these. This is a tough schedule for Michigan, but man, they are bringing back, despite losing Josiah Stewart, Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, they're bringing back quite the talent here. Bryce Underwood, Justice Haynes, Rayshon Benny, Derek Moore, Jayshawn Barham, TJ Guy, Jair Hill, Rod Moore. The defense is going to be unbelievable. And as long as Bryce Underwood can scratch the surface of his potential in his first year, this team is going to the college football playoffs. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to fare against some of these teams. You know, you got New Mexico in week 1, then you got Oklahoma, Central Michigan, Nebraska, Wisconsin, USC, Washington, Michigan State, Purdue, Northwestern, Maryland, Ohio State. There are some tough games in there for Michigan. Tough games. I do think 9-3, 10-2 is the ceiling. It's just, it all depends on Bryce Underwood for me. And it depends on the receiving core as well. They need to have some guys break out in a big way. They need, obviously on the offensive side, they lost Colston Loveland, who was their basically best option on the offensive side last year. Donovan Edwards is gone as well. So it's going to be tough, but I think Underwood has, more than enough talent to get it done. It just depends on how long of a transition is it for him, because the talent is certainly there. The talent around him is certainly there for the most part. I think Michigan is going to be really good again this year. At number 6, I have the Nebraska Cornhuskers, led by Matt Rule and Dylan Raiola, who so desperately wants to be Patrick Mahomes. It is unbelievable. That's all I'll say on the matter. But combined with the fact that Nebraska actually did very well in the transfer portal, they added Dane Key, which I think was huge for the receiver room. Nazea Hunter as well from California. 2 really, really inspiring wide receivers to add to this roster. The defensive side is going to be a little bit of a transition. New defensive coordinator. They lost a little bit through the NFL draft as well. It's going to be a little bit of a transition, but they do have plenty of talent to go around. They dipped into the transfer portal quite a bit for the defensive side. I think really where Nebraska's success is going to lie this year, with a gaudy 9-3 record that I have them predicted as, is going to be the schedule. I really think Dylan Raiola takes a step forward towards being one of the Big Ten's top signal callers, or at least high up there. It's going to be tough to compete with Drew Aller, Luke Altmaier, Julian Sayin, Dante Moore, guys like that. But yeah, this schedule is pretty cupcake, man. Cincinnati, Akron, Houston Christian, Michigan, Michigan State, Maryland, Minnesota, Northwestern, USC, UCLA, Penn State, and Iowa. Really, the only 3 losses I have is Michigan, Penn State, and maybe Minnesota or USC. Those are the 2 toss-ups for me, one of the other. It's a pretty cupcake schedule for Nebraska, and I truly think that a return to the top 25 is not only in reach, it's almost guaranteed. As long as everyone can play up to their potential, especially in Raiola, I want to see a little bit more. We saw flashes of how good he could be. I want to see that next step forward. If you want to be Patrick Mahomes, you got to play like Patrick Mahomes. But on the defensive side, they have plenty of talent left over for this new defensive coordinator. On the offensive side, they did nothing but add talent. I think Matt Rule is in a really, really good spot right now, and I think this is the year that Nebraska is officially back to being good at football again. At number 5, I have Kirk Cignetti's Indiana Hoosiers at 9-3. Really, this team is loaded with talent. And it's so funny how, programs go through trials and tribulations, because, when I was younger, Indiana sucked. I think the best year that Indiana had was that one year where Tevin Coleman ran for, 429 yards in one game. They were terrible when I was younger. But now, they're national powerhouses for the most part. Listen, the returning players are unbelievable. Elijah Surratt, I think, is going to be one of the top wide receivers in the nation. He's going to be a first-round pick, in my opinion. Carter Smith is a dog on the offensive line. They brought in Roman Hemby. We talked about him before from Maryland. I think that is a very, very solid get for them in the backfield. On the defensive side, D'Angelo Pons, I believe, is a first-round pick. Mikhail Kamara is a stud, a little bit undersized for the edge rushing position, but he is an absolute stud. Aiden Fisher is a stud as well. And then the piece de resistance is the transfer of Fernando Mendoza. He's a top 3 pick in 2026. You could cut this now. You could quote this now. I believe when it's all said and done, I'll stretch it to top 5. I think Fernando Mendoza is going to be a top 5 pick in the 2026 NFL draft. He is unbelievable. What a move for him. What a move for the Indiana Hoosiers. I think he's such an upgrade over Curtis Rourke. It's insane. The schedule is nice. The schedule is nice. Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, Indiana State, Illinois, Iowa, Oregon, Michigan State, UCLA, Maryland, Penn State, Wisconsin, and Purdue. I think that there is a relative upset somewhere in there, sandwiched in between the Penn State and Oregon games. I think Michigan State, UCLA, Wisconsin, Illinois. Illinois is really the team that I think is going to take them down. I do think that's how they get to 9-3. But Curt Cignetti has turned this program absolutely on its head. Last year, you could say they benefited from a favorable schedule, but man, they are just so talented on both sides of the ball, and I think it's going to continue. I think they're only going to get better from here. They look like they are a transfer destination for a lot of teams now. You got stability at the head coaching position. You got good defensive players. You got good offensive players. You got good coordinators set in place. I think Indiana is here to stay for quite a while. I want to take a little bit of time here to talk about the job that Brett Bielema has done in his time at Illinois. I just want to really, and this is going to sound like I'm polishing his knob, and I apologize for people that think that, but let's just take a look, or just look back at the last 3 years or so, and the amount of. Now, I'm not even talking about like record-wise. He's changed the program culture so much. The defensive talent that he has produced since he has arrived here has been unbelievable. I really think he deserves all the praise in the world for the culture that he built here in Illinois. Unbelievable. And I want to switch it over on the offensive line too. Quite a bit of talent in the NFL now as well. They have an absolute stud on the defensive side in Xavier Scott, which I think he's going to be a first-round pick. Gabe Yakas is another player off the edge that I like quite a bit. Hudson Clement is going to have a difficult time taking over for Zachariah Franklin and Pat Bryant, but I think he's up for the challenge. And then you have one of the best not talked about quarterbacks in the Big Ten in Luke Altmaier. Damn it, last year he was unbelievable. Is Luke Altmaier a bells and whistle guy? Is he going to go out there and throw for 450 yards and win you a game? No. Is he going to keep the ball out of harm's way? Is he going to be a fantastic game manager and make the necessary throws when he can? Absolutely. On top of all that, the offensive line this year for them is fantastic. This team is just so disciplined on the defensive side too. They're so well coached. Brett Bielema really has to kind of like take pride in what he's done with this team. Truly. I mean, I personally can't say enough good things about this team. I really can't. Like I said, it's going to be tough for them to replace a lot of the defensive talent that they lost last year. 21.7 points per game. They're bringing back, a couple starters from last year. Like I said, Gabe Yakas is coming back. A couple transfers. Kurt Neal and James Thompson is going to be huge for them on the defensive side. This team is awesome, and they just miss out on the top 3 for me. The schedule is so cookie cutter. They're going to make the college football playoffs this year. Western Illinois, Duke, Western Michigan, Indiana, USC, Purdue, Ohio State, Washington, Rutgers, Maryland, Wisconsin, Northwestern. Ohio State is tough. Duke is a tough non-conference team, and Indiana, and USC. Other than that, this is a cakewalk schedule for the Fighting Illini. I think big things are expected from them this year, and I think Brett Bielema is going to produce. Oregon at number 3, and this was tough. I'll just say it right now so you guys aren't mad. The top 3 are all at 11-1. Dan Lanning is going to have another insane season where he takes his team to the college football playoffs. Mekhi Hughes from Tulane is an unbelievable get for Dante Moore. It takes a ton of pressure off of him. Evan Stewart, Decorian Moore, Kenyon Sadiq, unbelievable weapons to throw to. You have the offensive line. Nevada transfer Isaiah World is one of my favorite, probably my second or third favorite tackle in the entire draft class. The defense, led by Bryce Bottiger, is unbelievable as well. I mean, you can't say enough good things about this team. And really, the 11-1 spot boils down to the schedule. I do think that they lose to Penn State. I do think that. And it's at Penn State. That's really the only game I could see them losing. And that's why they are so far back here. At number 2, I have the Nittany Lions. And the only game I see them losing is against Ohio State. And that's the only reason why they end up number 2 in the Big Ten. Because, like I said, all 3 teams are 11-1 in my predictions. And they all lost to each other, essentially. So, it's now or never for James Franklin, in my opinion, to win a title. They've come so close. This is one of the most talented teams I think I've ever seen for a college football team. Drew Aller is probably going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Katron Allen and Nick Singleton's probably going to be a first-round pick. Katron Allen's probably not going to be too far behind. Danny Dennis Sutton is unbelievable. Amari Campbell is fantastic. AJ Harris is my second favorite cornerback in the entire draft class coming up. They have so much talent. The wide receiver trio is the lo and behold. Devontae Ross, I think, is going to be awesome for them as well. They have just probably the best offensive line in the Big Ten. I can't say enough good things about this Penn State team, except for when they play Ohio State. Nevada, FIU, Villanova. Jesus Christ, that's going to be a disaster against Villanova. Villanova, Oregon, UCLA, Northwestern, Iowa, Ohio State, Indiana, Michigan State, Nebraska, and Rutgers. This is an 11-1 team, and I do think that loss comes against Ohio State only because they are at Ohio State. And let's talk about Ohio State here. I have them at number 1 in the Big Ten. I don't care that Julian Sayin is their quarterback now, and he is relatively unproven. I mean, what can you say about this roster? Jeremiah Smith is quite possibly one of the greatest wide receiving prospects we've ever seen. You have Carnell Tate, who I don't like as much, but I still think is very, very solid. Max Clare is a fantastic tight end. The offensive line is awesome. Sonny Styles, the trio of Sonny Styles, Davison Igbinosun, and Caleb Downs right away will feed families. That I have been tweeting. If you guys don't follow me, I only have like 40 followers on Twitter, so I don't expect you guys to follow me. I tweeted out about that trio like 7 months ago, how that's going to feed families. The defense is just unbelievable. The offense has so much talent from top to bottom. It's just, I don't even know what else to say. It's tough. Deciphering between these 3 teams, I do think Penn State and Ohio State do hold a little bit over Oregon in terms of natural, ready NFL talent on the defensive side. That's just my opinion. There are a couple dogs on the defensive side on Oregon. I'm just saying that Penn State and Ohio State, it's a factory for both of these teams. But I do have both of these teams here just because, relatively speaking, I think that they are just so stacked with next-level talent. The Big Ten National Championship, the Big Ten, it might be the National Championship game. The Big Ten Conference Championship game between Penn State, Ohio State. I have Ohio State winning. I'm sorry. Until I could see Drew Aller perform well in big enough games, I just can't. I know Julian Sayin is unproven, but my God, everyone else around him is proven and awesome. All he has to do is just say, screw it, Jeremiah Smith is down there somewhere, and he's going to catch it more often than not. He's got the best wide receiver in the country. He's got a great 1-2 punch with Carnell Tate. The running game is going to be good. The offensive line is good. He's got a great transfer tight end in Max Clare. The defense, I think, is going to be the best in the nation. I truly can't see Penn State usurping Ohio State in the conference championship game. And honestly, I don't really see many teams usurping them all the way to the national championship game. So, with my final record prediction of the 2025-26 season, I just want to say thank you guys so much for an unbelievable series this has been. I can't wait to do it again next year. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you're going to enjoy the 2025-26 college football season.